Hello? Okay. Good morning, everybody. It is a great honor to welcome the Holocaust survivor Leslie Schwartz in the Bennohaus. After decades of silence, today he holds lectures and tells about his experiences. Within the context of the German-Israeli project Creative Arts Against Discrimination, today we have the great opportunity to get an insight into his moving life. First of all, Dr. Moosholt, the Managing Director of Bennohaus, will deliver a short welcoming speech.
Dear guests, my dear friends from Israel, dear Mr. Yoksh, and of course, dear Mr. Schwartz, I heartily like to welcome you here in the Bennohaus. It's a great honor and pleasure for me to see all of you here together. The Bennohaus is an open place for all generations. Thank you very much. So I welcomed you, and it's a great honor and pleasure for me to see you all here together in the Bennohaus. The Bennohaus is an open place for all generations. It's intercultural. It has history. All people have history. The project with units young Israeli people and young Germans here also deals with history. Our honorable guest, Mr. Schwartz, is also a part of our history. Today we are here to listen to his private history of life and deal with human history. We can learn from that history. And we already have learned from it. We never forget, we will remember. We need this culture of remembering.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Moosholt. We are very happy today that Mr. Yoksh, the honorary mayor of Münster, is with us. He would also like to say some words to our Israeli guests and, of course, to the rest of the audience.
Good morning, dear Mr. Schwartz, sir, Dr. Moosholt, distinguished guests from Israel and from Germany. On behalf of the Lord Mayor, Markus Lewe, and the Assembly of the Deputies, I wish you a warm welcome here in Münster. For me, it's an honor to be a representative of my hometown at this moment. I think it's admirable when a man is able to come back to the country in which he was almost killed. And it's a noble gesture when he comes back, not to sentence us, but to be witness and tell young people about the cruelties of the Nazis under which he had suffered. So you give them a chance to learn about the immorality of the so-called Third Reich. A former chancellor of the German Republic once explained it would be a mercy to be born after the Nazi government. For me, it's not a mercy to be born in 1951 when I was born, but a chance to discover the truth, to learn from a man like you, dear Mr. Schwartz, and to recognize how necessary democracy is. We must learn that the human rights have to be protected against dictatorial regimes all over the world. I wish you many more opportunities to tell about your personal experience, and I wish you always as many interested young people as today. So I thank you for coming here, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your audience. But I want to add some sentence about the things that happen now in your homeland, in Israel. We hear about the danger of war, and we are very anxious about this. And I hope you can preserve the peace, can go back to safety in your country, and I wish you all the best in your life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jott. Now the technicians need a moment to rearrange the stage, and then it's time to hand over to Mr. Schwartz. Okay. First of all, Mr. Schwartz will introduce himself, and then he will read a passage from his book, Surviving the Hell of Auschwitz and Dachau, a teenage struggle towards freedom from hatred.
Thank you very much. It is indeed a pleasure for me to be here. This is going to be my 94th termin in the last 3 years in Germany. I don't know if I'm able to keep going, but to me, to see young people, it is something that was very, very important for me in order to get myself back as a human being. During my concert period, I was only 14 years old. And every day, ihr dreckige Juden, ihr saure Juden. And one starts to feel inferior, and you say to yourself, am I really that dreckige and saure Jude? And it worked on me as a young boy. Naturally, I did feel inferior. And it took 68 years for me to feel again somewhat that I too belong to the human race. And this, I must tell you, young people, I love you all for this, that you made this possible for me to feel the way I feel today. It has been a wonderful experience for me. Throughout Germany, wherever I go, they treat me really great. And I got so used to it that you become somewhat like a performer. You're looking for the next applause. And I'm glad for that. Again, many thanks for being here and listening to my story and my documentary film, which you are going to see. But I would like to read something from my English version. My first book was published in 2007 in Denmark, in Danish. The first day it was on 5th, and the next day it was #1 for 10 weeks in Copenhagen. So I don't have to tell you the kind of love and respect I had for that country that did so much for the Jews during the Nazi era. And they have invited me again from September 14th to the 30th. I'm going to be in Denmark and Sweden. Never been to Sweden, and I'm really looking forward to spend some time there. So, let me read something from my book, which I tell to German secondary students. Martin Luther King Jr. once wrote, "We are not makers of history, we are made by history. Truer words about my life have not been spoken. Each and every Holocaust survivor must come to terms with the concept of loss. The losses we suffered are so vast and unforgettable that I believe that it takes a long time to confront them and perhaps many generations to heal them. I was only a young boy when the troubles in my country began, and at 14 years of age, I lost my freedom, my family, my citizenship, my identity, and even my name. But above all, these very real and tangible losses I suffered, the worst loss of all is simply being forgotten. To be removed and isolated from all aspects previously associated with being human and all activities historically and traditionally associated with humanity, to realize the enemy has taken you away from any future opportunity for joy and nurturing human relation is the most tragic loss of all. You become a ghost, human only in your biology. Your awareness and consciousness is no longer among living. You exist to pass time only until quite literally you join the ghostly real. And while you are passing time in hell, you are barely able to associate with the other ghosts who, just like you, are ready to let go of everything good that makes us human and connected to each other. In this condition, you can very easily just give up. This was never my choice, but it is the real war a survivor like me had to fight every day in the camps and for decades afterwards. Now understand what I am about to say is a very radical statement, but my captures also became ghosts, for they also had to abandon their humanity as well. When a nation creates a war machine and becomes the perpetrator of such inhuman crimes, the nation itself risks losing its humanity. One may be on the free side of the fences or camp walls, but that freedom is illusory. To bind others, one must also bond. In this way, I can completely relate to understand why my search for healing is also Germany's search for healing. We are not separate in this process. Some people think it's strange for a Holocaust survivor to have embraced this healing intuitively in Germany. But I do not. It seemed to me, right from the first days after the war until today, the only possible option my healing is forever linked with Germany's healing. That's why I could not be happier about the documentary you are about to see. Beatrice Zonnhüter has captured the essence of my struggles and the profound healing journey I have also traveled, leading right up to our conversation today. And for me to speak to you today is, of course, an honor. But it's also unimaginable because if you were to see me at the age of 14, being taken away with my family in a cattle wagon headed for Auschwitz, where not only did I think I might never return to my village in Hungary, but I wondered if I would ever return to the place of the living, much less become a man who would one day speak to people who might actually want to hear what he has to say. The Nazis began to carry out their final solution in Hungary in 1944, and by the time the smoke had cleared, over 500,000 Hungarian Jews from 800,000 who lived there before the war would be murdered, including my mother, sister, and stepfather. So the odds were against me, to say the least. In fact, at least 3 times before the age of 16, I should have died. I have been imprisoned, brutalized, starved, slaved, and shot. So there is no logical or plausible explanation as to why I stand here before you, except for the miraculous and defiant acts of kindness by a few people I encountered during my time in the camps. People who also happen to be German, and I would not be here today without them. Small acts of love often hold the greatest power. And this is the wonderful and challenging part of my story. As a teenage survivor of Auschwitz, Dachau, and other sub-camps of Dachau, including Mühldorf, and the death train I was forced to ride in the last days of the war. You will soon learn more about this from the documentary. One would think I have nothing but hatred for Germany and the German people, and that might have been the case if not for these 3 particular Germans who defied the Nazi hatred with unbelievable kindness: Martin Fuchs, Agnes Riesch, and Barbara Huber. Martin Fuchs offered me encouragement, friendship, and liverable sandwich when I worked at the railroad station in Karlsfeld near Halle. Agnes Riesch gave me bread, money, and her food vouchers in Dachau. She called me dear son Lazarus. In complete defiance of their SS guards, I might add, they told her, if you keep this up, we will put you in here. She told them, I don't care, I'm old. They never touched her, by the way. And Barbara Huber, from the kitchen of her small farmhouse in Bavaria, reached out to me and 3 other ghostly survivors, nothing but skin and bones, barely alive, who had fled the death train during the Poing massacre, serving us the most delicious bread, butter, and milk I have ever tasted. Barbara Huber, like Agnes Riesch, before her, considered me her son. Emaciated, half teenage Jewish concentration camp prisoner, was also her son. I did not learn Barbara Huber's name for more than 65 years, but she, Martin Fuchs, and Agnes Riesch never left my memory for one day. All the miraculous events that have occurred in my life in the past few years have been a direct result of my search for Barbara Huber. Through a series of newspaper stories in Germany during the summer of 2011, I was able to meet her daughter Mariana Meyer and thus begun my journey, which has brought me to you today. All 3 helped to save more than just my body, for nourishment in more than food, but thoughts and feelings too. And most importantly, they helped keep me from the Nazi mindset of hatred. You see, when you are oppressed and put in a position of being on the receiving end, quite literally, of genocide, it is very easy to hate the people that did this to you. And many people would say that hatred was entirely justified, even necessary to be returned in kind. But for me, that was not the case. because 3 kind Germans put seeds of hope in my mind and love in my heart, showing me that all Germans were not the same. That was a good lesson to learn because it would prove very valuable to me during my lifelong search for wholeness, and good advice for those interested in facilitating the healing that needs to take place among all people on this planet for so many other, perhaps less well-known, but no less horrible atrocities we humans keep inflicting upon each other in the 67 years since World War ended. I have learned that only love can conquer hatred. But love, let me remind you, serves us better as a verb rather than a noun. To say, to think, to wish love is good, but to act, to feel, and to experience love is better. Because I can tell you, when you rescue the heart of a child, just as my heart was rescued all those years ago, in any similarly desperate circumstances, you save the life of an adult who will then carry for the rest of his or her life instead of a message of hate, a message of love, and one that will resonate and touch many other lives. In the last few years, I have come together with so many people from all over the world for whom my story has found powerful resonance, and there has been no greater happiness and healing for me to experience than the love of young people who can relate to my story, especially the German students I have spoken with for the last 2 years as an honored guest in the country that once sought to exterminate me. Yes, no, I am honored, respected, acknowledged, loved, and definitely not forgotten. This is the unimaginable miracle that has made me whole. So now you're about to see the documentary film that chronicles a short period during the last days of my imprisonment, but the one message I want you to walk away with, which is my life message, is no matter what healing and wholeness are always possible. We no longer need to pretend we are all separate. We can indeed face the sometimes brutal but also beautiful greater reality that we are all connected and that freedom from hatred is truly possible. Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much. Before we can talk to Mr. Schwartz personally, we will now watch a film about one of the last cruel acts of the Nazis. The film is set in 1945, just before the end of the war. A train with concentration camp prisoners is meant to bring the mainly Hungarian Jews from Mühldorf to Tyrol. The Nazis want none of the prisoners to survive the war. Leslie Schwartz was 14 years old and probably the youngest prisoner in the train. What happened there and how he managed to survive this horror is what we will now see in the film The Mühldorf Train of Death.
Well, I'm very grateful to the Bayerische Rundfunk. I think they have done a wonderful, wonderful documentary which I have been showing this, I don't even know how many times. But I think briefly this delivers the message. But a 14-year-old boy is able to endure and to tell the story. I mean, it's, I don't have to tell you, people in Auschwitz, many of the survivors, when they were asked, do you believe in God? One of my good friends, Max Mannheimer, we were together in Dachau. His answer is, I left God in Auschwitz. But then, if you speak to scholars, many of them in the United States, they approach me, and they are convinced that I was left alive for the purpose of telling my story, which is really interesting. In KZ, I said to myself, I must endure this pain and horrible times that I could tell this story to students. And you know, when I think back of it, it's amazing how I was so involved with it that my story should be told for a future generation.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Thank you for giving us an insight into the story of your life today. And as you can see, the audience is still very moved by this film. So therefore I will start with the first question. How do you feel today being confronted with these terrible images we've just seen in the film?
Well, in the beginning, of course, it was terrible for me to see, because when we film, you know, this, I believe there are 6 of these women in Kokering, where the European Jews were transported to Auschwitz. So when they asked me to go inside, I really had no idea what was the purpose for them to step into that wagon. And then, you know, things come to your mind. I was not able to say goodbye to my sister and mom. So I said to myself, well, I am in this train where we saw each other the last time. So I'm very happy that I was able to say goodbye.
Okay, thank you. Now I would like to involve the audience. Are there any questions to Mr. Schwartz from you?
You were 14 when you got when the war started. So and you survived. What made you survive all these years? What keep you alive?
What made me talk about? You want to know what made me talk about it, no? The lady who gave me a glass of milk and a delicious piece of butter and bread. After the war, I made sure to go back to each and every one of these people to thank them. Unfortunately, I was not able to find where later on I found out that was Barbara Huber, and I was not able to find her. And that I was so upset when I went back to the United States. I used to think about it. Why could not I find her? So 68 years ago, the Bayerische Gedenkstätte assigned a man to me who takes me around to schools, to wherever I want to go. And I told him the story. I said, is it possible to find this lady in Poing? You know, Poing then was a very small village. Today it's a little bit bigger. So he put an ad in the newspapers, and of course, Frau Huber passed away. But his daughter came to see me in the hotel, and of course I was much relieved that now I am identified at least with some members of the family, and ever since then we have been in touch. When I received my Bundesverdienstkreuz on July 1st last year, I invited Marianne Meyer, the daughter of Huber. I invited Martin Fuß's grandson, who participated in this event. And it was a wonderful feeling for me to be presented at this event.
You've mentioned the Bundesverdienstkreuz. It's a Federal Cross of Merit, and it's Germany's highest civilian honor. What does this award mean to you?
Well, first of all, it was a very beautiful event in Munich. I wanted to receive the Bundesverdienstkreuz in Munich because as a prisoner, we used to work around Munich. So the culture minister presented the award to me, and present was the American Consul General for Munich, the Israeli Consul General, the Hungarian Consul General, and it was a very festive event. Here I am receiving all this beautiful award, and back so many years ago they wanted to kill us. And then from there, the American Consul General hosted a beautiful party at his private residence for 50 of my beautifully invited guests.
Are there further questions from the audience? Yes.
Have you ever seen someone who was also a prisoner? Have you ever seen someone again? Or never?
Yeah, we were 4 friends from my hometown, and all 4 of us survived. Since then, one passed away, and one unfortunately is very sick, and the 3rd one lives in Canada, and I'm in touch with him. And I'm also privileged to help the Israeli wonderful students here. I don't have to tell you how much Israel means to me. This is one of the most important things today, for Israel to be Israel forever and ever. I think us Jews around the globe would have a lot of difficulty, if not for Israel today. And I believe that is something that I strive for, and when I'm in the United States, I am visiting many Hebrew schools and elementary schools, and we talk about this. So I'm really honored with all of you that I can participate here, and you were able to see my horrible story, which took place almost 70 years ago.
Okay, but through events like this, you are always confronted with your past. And yeah, I've got another question. You survived 4 concentration camps: Auschwitz, Dachau, Allach, and Mühldorf.
Yeah.
Have you visited these places again? And if so, how was it for you?
You know, this is, I think a psychiatrist would have a wonderful time with me. I think I'm one of the few, if you read it in my book, I love to go back to the places where I suffered. And each year that I'm in Germany, I visit every time these former concentration camps. The only one that I never want to go back to is Auschwitz. Auschwitz, that I parted from my family, that would be too difficult for me to go there. But I have been to Dachau maybe 20 times. And I go there and greet the people. Since 1965, 30 million people visited Dachau. And when they see me there, and I tell them I was 14 years old when I was here, it's a wonderful feeling how they really feel about me, talk to me, cry with me. Since my English book was released, it became the most popular book in the Gedächtnis of Dachau. I suppose English is now the language that people read most, so I'm going to be in Dachau from August 3rd to the 10th, signing my books.
Other questions?
When you were young, how did you manage to not lose your mind or get crazy in this horror?
What was important to me, as you can see in my documentary film, for me to live was very important. I kept repeating that I must live too. And the people who gave up, or they sold their bread, for cigarettes, I did not feel bad for them. I always felt, why can't you be like me? Hang in there, fight, make sure that you survive. This was something very important for me, to survive.
I've seen there are more questions here.
How do you feel telling us your story? Is it the same terrible feelings like after the war, every time and every time?
Well, I feel sad, but I also feel good. That at least there are people out there who listen to my story and not only you will listen to my story, but I'm sure you will also relate this story, perhaps to your parents, to your brother, your sister, or friends. So I feel that I am on a mission which in today's time is so important, that at least the youth of this generation will know what took place. Unfortunately, after the war in Germany, they did not want to know much about this story. It was hidden. And many of the Germans were embarrassed to be Germans. So, and I feel very good about it, that I have the opportunity of telling my stories. From here until October 28th, when I return to New York, I have to visit 21 gymnasium throughout Germany. So I'm looking forward of meeting these wonderful, wonderful young people of today.
Okay, we can continue with another question.
Hello. You told us about your story and from the past, and we learned about it now. And I would want to learn something from you. I'm a young girl, and there is many young people here. What do you think we need to learn now for the future? Is this what is your message for us to the future? This is things belongs to the government or the society. How can we learn not just the story of the past, but the message and the challenge that we have now for the future?
Well, I believe today, every young person is so sophisticated with technology and know-how that I think it makes it possible to choose between evil and good. I honestly feel that throughout my journey here, it's now 3 years ago, I have been received really beautifully. Wherever I go, they wishing me good health. Please continue, it's so important. And I try to do my part to make this really a better world to live in. I must tell you an interesting little story. When I went to the United States, I was 16 years old, and I was speaking English. I was sent to a parochial school, and from there I went to a gymnasium, and I worked part-time job for a very sophisticated printing company where they really did some beautiful work. And I fell in love with the printing business. So I was looking for a job, and in 1947 in the United States, there was quite a bit of anti-Semitism, especially banks and insurance companies. They did not hire Jews. So there was an ad in the New York Times that they were looking for a manager for this life insurance company to run the printing department. So I said to myself, well, I don't know if I should apply for this job. They're probably not going to hire me. So I called David Lamb, which means nothing to me. Was he Jewish? Was he not? So I came to the office, and as it turned out to be, the company originally was called Judea Life. Judea Life was organized by a dozen Zionist American wealthy Jewish people. And the purpose of it was to send all the profit then back to Palestine. There was no Israel yet. And then, of course, they changed the name to Eastern Life Insurance Company because the state of New York found unconstitutional that a fund should go to a foreign land. So they changed it to Eastern Life. The president of Eastern Life was a very prominent American Jew by the name of Louis Lipsky, the founder of the American Zionist Organization. One day he calls me, he wants to see me in his office. I walk in, who was sitting there with him? Ben-Gurion and Chaim Weizmann. Ben-Gurion immediately attacks me. What does a young boy like you doing in America? You should be in Israel. I mean, this was one of the most unbelievable experiences for me. I believe I was 19 years old. So, and then of course I had the opportunity to go to Israel, and when we arrived, I kissed the ground. It was an extremely emotional trip for me to be in the land. And unfortunately, if Israel would have been at the Hitler time, I don't think that all these people would have cherished. So, as I write in my book, love is stronger than hate, shalom. That's my motto.
Okay, that's a great motto. Love is stronger than hate, but unfortunately, anti-Semitism is a phenomenon which still exists today. Do you believe that there will be a time when people can live together without prejudices against each other, regardless of their origin or religion? Is that possible?
Now, here, look at my former country, Hungary. I mean, who would believe this? Here we are, 2014. When the war ended, I was 15 years old, and I said to myself, thank God that the human race learned something. But unfortunately, they have invited me to go to Hungary, and I am sure that the purpose they would like me to be there is for some kind of a propaganda, not for something that I would be able to freely tell the story as I'm telling it here and throughout Germany. So, your question is, unfortunately, it's very skeptical. I think anti-Semitism is here to stay. It's, as my attorney said in New York, don't blame him, he drank his mother's milk. And that will tell you really the story. What anti-Semitism knows, this is being from generation to generation. You will never hear say, he's a Catholic, but you will hear he's a Jew. What is the difference between one religion and the other one religion? But you never hear it, as I'm Catholic. Never hear it, right?
Okay, are there any further questions now? Okay. Okay, we can start here and then.
I have a question, theoretical. If you would meet right now the survivor who is German and who in the past did the bad stuff, because, for example, he was in the army in SS, what you would do, how you would react if he would stand in front of you right now? The German who survived.
You mean what took place? What took place, how would I feel about it?
Yeah, what you would say to him, how you will react, if you would talk to him, if you would just go away, because you know that he did something wrong in the past.
Well, this is also in my book. There was a couple by the name of Knowles, who was in Dachau from 1933 until 1945. And he was a communist. He left two young teenagers behind, and he turned out to be the worst bracket that you can ever imagine. He enjoyed killing, tormenting, hitting people. When it would rain, he would chase out all the prisoners who were in that barrack and come back, and the floor was wet, and he wanted you to kneel down and lick up the water from the floor. This was his pleasure of doing so. So, as you know, when the war ended, there were unfortunately not enough of these who were sentenced to death. One of them was Knowles, who was sentenced to death. I was in the United States, and of course I was listening to what was happening. So that was a tremendous satisfaction for me, that at least I was able to witness one person who was really a nightmare. And the Americans were very kind. In Tutzing, where I was liberated, there was a young SS who remained, mind you, to watch over us here. And here the Americans were already advancing. So we were all shocked. He was in his SS uniform with his gun, all alone. So naturally the prisoners grabbed him and they wanted to really cut pieces from him. An American Jewish lieutenant from the American Army noticed there was a commotion And he immediately came with his jeep and spoke to us in Yiddish. And he said, "You cannot do this. There is a law." And he grabbed him and he saved his life. So, again, you know, one who comes from a normal upbringing, he said to us, I understand how you feel, but you can't do this. You cannot kill it.
Okay. And then it's your turn.
After all what we Germans did in the past, do you think that we still have, and it's not called a right, but maybe that we can still be proud of us, that we can still have this patriotism, because we are very unconfident about this?
You know, I hate to say this, but I did not want them to win this last subject. I didn't want them to feel again this superiority. You know, even though in Argentina, you know, many of the Nazis fled after the war. So my love was not so great for them either. But on the other hand, you know, feeling that we are the best, it's very difficult for me to hear this. You know, it always brings me back to the horrible times.
I guess everybody here can understand that. Now it's your turn.
Hi, my question is, how do you view the danger of fascism and sparkling nationalistic movements in the world right now? Do you consider it like a real danger, or I don't know? Do you discharge this?
Well, I had the good fortune of meeting Angela Merkel in Münster on the 23rd of August last year. And she said to me, "Please write to me." So I wrote to her, and I'll be able to show you people. I think I have the original that she wrote me in German, and I also have, I believe, the translation. I think this woman is probably one of the most important ladies today in Europe. She was in Israel, and she was at the Knesset. She's very much loved, very much respected, and I feel that a person like Angela Merkel at this time is the most important person here in Europe. She's a kind person, caring person, and I'm honored that I had the opportunity to meet her and speak to her.
Who wants to say something or add something? Another question? Okay, again.
thank you for the answer, but my question was more about sparkling nationalistic movements like Jobbik in Hungary, and if you consider movements like this a danger, is there something that you want to say about sparkling nationalism in different countries? Do you see a danger of re-rising fascist ideas there?
Well, I suppose Hungary would like to rewrite. I had a very interesting encounter when I received my Bundesverdienstkreuz, and also when I was invited in Munich this past July 4th, the celebration of Independence Day by the American Consul General. And there was the Hungarian Consul General, and we greeted each other. And I had a Vortrag in München at Karl's Gymnasium. And I was a little bit delayed, but the Hungarian Consul General was there a half an hour before. And for the school principal, he was complaining about Orban, his boss, mind you. And he, of course, left. And that school principal was telling me this story. He said, Mr. Schwartz, this is very strange that the Hungarian Consul General is not pleased with the government, the way it's running. And I said to myself, well, there must be more to this. He arranged for me to go back to my village, which is now a little city, to visit my village. And he calls me and he says to me, Mr. Schwartz, I am only going to be in München until the end of this month, July, and I have been recalled, and I have not been told that I'm getting another assignment, which means he already knew when he complained about the regierung that he is not wanted. So that will tell you the story. Meanwhile, the Bürgermeister from my village called me, very cordial. We would love to have you, Mr. Schwartz. And he mentioned his name, and I said to him, was your father Joseph Neutsch? He said, yes. He said, you know, as a kid I used to play with him football. So, you know, I have a mixed feeling about going there. I would love to see some of these people, but I don't have to tell you if I'm 84. Very few of them are alive, or if any, but it's interesting. But even if I want to go, I have so many termine, but we'll see.
Okay, now it's your chance to ask some last questions. Yes?
Mr. Schwartz, you said that you are on a mission to tell your story to the people, but when you failed to be on the mission, or when yourself said, I have to tell people, or even though, or mostly young generations, about what happened to me.
What is the concrete question?
My concrete question is, when you started to feel on this mission, when you started to have the point you have to tell the people about the story, when did this begin?
Well, my mission started when I was able to find out about Barbara Hoover. And then I got in touch in March Schwaben with a history teacher by the name of Heinrich Meyer, who is responsible really for this documentary film. He did all the research, and I believe it's like 15 years that he was able to work on this. And because of meeting Heinrich Meyer, I was able to meet Max Mannheimer. I'm sure many of you must know that name because he is a very prominent man in Germany. He lives in Haag, near Munich, and he's 94 years old, and he's constantly on the go. He has been to gymnasium thousands and thousands of times. So when he invited me to his home, it was a beautiful, beautiful reunion, and the way he greeted me, he took out the shofar, which is blown on the high Jewish holiday to bring in the new year. And I said to myself, what a wonderful thing to see. I said, Max, where did you get this? He said, a Polish Christian lady found this in Bürgerhaus, in the wagon. So, and there and then I decided, well, if Max is, at that time he was 90 when I met him, I said, if Max is able to do this for so many years, I must do this likewise. And I'm very grateful that I have chosen that. And many, many people are behind me, especially in the USA. You know, they know about my coming and going. And I believe it's good for me, and I'm hoping it's good for the students that see me and hear my story.
I won't say something anymore, but I would like you to give something, because you touched myself so much, and I will do this now. This is something for you. You can see it standing in Remember chair, and you can take it.
Well, I have something here that I think I must tell the, oh, this you're going to give, right?
If you want, you can write in this book, a moment, this one, afterwards.
Yeah, you can pass this on. This is the English version that Frau Merkel sent me that letter. I read this wherever I go. Deep in your heart is where I reside. Listen, you will hear all the tears that I have cried. I am the soul of millions who died before you given your birth. Part of you being a piece of your past, the woman and children so brutally gassed. This is your legacy, please make it last. Go tell all the people on earth, memories as they grow older tend to grow colder. And then disappear. The burden is now on your shoulder. You have a message you must make them hear. Please never forget me. I am the spirit that must live on, though you never met me. You must remember me now that I am gone. Nothing has changed. I can still feel the hate. Standing in silence, you are tempting your fate. You must speak out now before it's too late. You cannot close your eyes and pretend. Think of the grandfather you never kissed, all of the relatives that you have missed. Raise up your voice and raise your fist and tell the world never again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If there are no further questions, I guess it's time to end the discussion. Mr. Schwartz, today you see a new generation of Germans working together with Israelis on a project against discrimination. Do you have any last words you want to give these young people on their way?
Of course, I'm hoping that there's definitely Israelis here to say there is no question about it. There's no way that these Holocaust survivors who went to Israel during those terrible times, especially 1948, so many of them were murdered. But I think the will to stay is going to be there forever. You know, I cannot forgive myself because I was a young boy. In the ghetto of Kishwaga, where they took us before we were sent to Auschwitz, we were 7,000 Jews and 2 young SS with a Schäferhund came into the ghetto and we were petrified. We were so afraid, 2 young boys, and we were taken like animals. So this is one of the things today in Israel, they more or less cannot forgive how we really walk to our death. And I'm very proud to say today is Israel. They feel very differently about it. So hopefully when we meet again, we can chat. Perhaps there'll be a peace in the Middle East.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you. Now we have a little present for you.
There is a book from our chairman, from Bürgerhaus. He wrote it, and we are really honored and really happy that you came here, and very, very much thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I can tell you something briefly. I just want to talk about it a bit. This is my Bundesverdienstkreuz, which you know, but I gotta tell you a little story about this little medal. This little medal was given to me in Copenhagen. The history teacher was telling me a story about Christopher X, the king at the time of the occupation of the Nazis, 1940. And of course he talked to me about the true story. The Danish Jews did not have to wear the yellow band, and that was only a story. But the king made it a point, those who were against the Nazi occupation, they should wear this little pin. And this little pin was given to the history teacher's great-grandfather. And he said to me, Mr. Schwartz, you are traveling around the globe. I am going to give this to you. And I'm really honored that I was able to get such a thing that was in the family. So I have really experienced, as they call the healing process, which of course is all part of it.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we have to finish this moving discussion, and if anyone wants, you can write something in this book from Mr. Schwartz.